You know what you did, Brian? I'll tell the people
I
what
hate to know. I hate to know.
You hate to find out about the things that you did. Well, what you did was you demanded that we delay the start of this recording 15 minutes earlier before we started recording. You demanded it or you wouldn't go on. I said, all right, I acquiesced to your demand. So while I had the 15 minutes sit here and twiddle my thumbs, I opened one of these file cabinets that I have yet had the time to fully go. I mean, I got a lot of file drawers up here. And a lot of the old 30-year-old, 40-year-old paperwork is not filed as nicely and neatly as possibly my, federal income tax returns. Although both of these things, all these things can come back to haunt you. But I just stuck a hand in and pulled a few things out that I thought that I might present to you and the listeners and the cult of Cornette, the people out there, and they may like to hear some of these. Would you like to hear what these things are?
Yeah, considering we have no context whatsoever for what it could be, let's find out what it is.
Well, that's because I didn't know what it was going to be until about 20 minutes ago when I stuck my hand in there and started pulling shit out. I found a postcard. This postcard was written or postmarked August 18th, 1986 from Scarsdale, New York. And it is a
motherfucker.
it's a picture of the punk rock folks with the spiky hair and the spiky pink hair and like the Lady Maxine type of outfits. And they're wearing the Sid Vicious and Johnny Rotten type of stuff. And it says scenic sights of New York City. Right. And it says, Jim, thanks for the best time I've had in a very long while. By the way, well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Hold on. There'll be some context in the next sentence.
Now the pictures make sense.
No, shut up. Yeah. Thanks for the best time I've had in a very long while. By the way, do you think they'll ever let us back into Sabatino's? I wonder. Your friend, Paul Heyman. And I found this and I looked back in the Midnight Express scrapbook. Of course, obviously, Sabatino's is in Baltimore. Paul was living, as we know, in the greater New York metropolitan area at that time. But we hadn't been to Baltimore since July 19th. That was during the Great American Bashes that year. I looked in the scrapbook. It was us against the Road Warriors. House was $106,000, by the way. But I seem to remember that I know that he was doing the, photography and doing, I think at that time, editing his own magazine. Did he get Wrestling Eye for a period of time? And I know he had come to the Meadowlands and et cetera, but I remember now, I think him possibly coming down to Baltimore because we went to Sabatino's every month, but I don't remember.
What was the date?
Well, this was postmarked in August 86, but the previous time we'd been in Baltimore was the month before in July. I don't remember being in any kind of incident in Sabatino's with Paul where they wouldn't let us back unless, we ordered too much food or he had some issue. I don't know what, but yeah, I wonder if he has the same post office box. Post office box, bleep, Scarsdale, New York, 10583.
Well, I reacted before because
yes,
and we'll just do this now. Let's start on a fun note. I told you let's go from the files today, or go to the segment from the files, and it wouldn't be a comprehensive one because the file's too big. It'll be a 50-parter. I'm going to get the Paul Heyman file. I didn't know that you had already done this, so...
Yeah, I completely independently.
It explains your reaction.
This is one of the things I had pulled out.
This is such a gigantic file because it has everything he ever sent in, including all the programs he was doing.
Well, and I guess for the people who may have just staggered across the program in a drunken stupor, Brian is the owner and curator and preserver of the files of the wrestling news, Ring Wrestling, and a whole bunch of other publications. There was, at the time, under the curatorship of this era with Paul Heyman and Norman Kietzer at Pro Wrestling Illustrated or Pro Wrestling Enterprises, over in Minnesota. And he, like Jack Pfeffer, saved every piece of paper he ever came across his desk. So we've been finding some very interesting things from all kinds of different people in the wrestling business.
You know, one of the problems is Heyman sent a lot of stuff in. Heyman is not someone who put dates on things.
No.
So Norm Kietzer, everything is dated. I'm looking at all this Heyman stuff. Nothing has a date on it because I'm trying to find if he sent anything in around that weekend in '86. Lots of photos, but I'll pick an interesting one here from, whoa, this is a gigantic file.
Ladies and gentlemen, Brian Last is secretly a hoarder, and one of his stacks just fell over on top of him and just smothered him.
Here's a letter from Paul Heyman to Norman Kietzer. Dear Norman, the April 19th show at the Meadowlands was the host for what could become a major problem. Including myself, there were 16 photographers at ringside. A situation which made it difficult for the regular photographers, not to mention the wrestlers, to do their jobs properly. Let's stop there, because 16 was all in caps here. Have you ever heard of that many photographers at ringside?
No, that's ridiculous. And hold on, because I have pictures that Paul took of us in the Meadowlands. I think that was the February show. I'm looking in my book. You can continue reading if you want, but I'm looking up that time period to see if we were on that April show.
I don't think this would be you, because I think this is April 85.
Oh, that's 85. Yeah. Well, in that case, then, fuck that.
Out of those 16, 3 were representing your publication! ! I was there, as usual, and 2 other gentlemen, partners, I believe, named Bob Epstein, and I can't remember his partner's name, were there with authorization to cover for the wrestling news. Gary Juster told me you okayed them. He gave them up right away. This creates a potentially dangerous situation. One of the reasons Vince McMahon Jr. threw the press out in February 1983 was because he was tired of the shenanigans that went on each month involving who represents whom. Bill Apter would have 2 guys at ringside. This guy would complain. This paper wanted to get in. This guy's credentials were questionable, etc. And although Jr.'s primary motive was his magazine, the fact remains that he was not lying when he told us that the press situation was ridiculous. So let's stop there, because obviously you've seen footage. You never shot ringside at the Garden. There were regulars on top of any special guests like local media for the newspapers or whatever. At what point as a promoter or a booker do you not want? I mean, you want some kind of action, I guess, maybe at ringside, someone shooting pictures. It makes it look like a big deal, especially when you had flash. But when they're bumping into each other and fighting for the shot, what do you do?
Well, and there is a happy medium, and there has to be a limit, and all of these things can be true at the same time. At the Garden, for the people who have seen, God, not only the stuff that's out there from the 70s because of the WWE, collection and the stuff they've got in the vault and everything, but even the pictures back in the 60s, the Garden was always a close area around ringside, close, not roomy, not spacious, is what I'm trying to say. The seats were pretty close to the ring, and there were the press tables. Bill Apter, even into the 70s, because it was in the up through the 60s, it was set up like boxing at the Garden, even for wrestling, even down to, you've seen the pictures, they had 4 ropes. They had a boxing ring. There were 4 ropes on the Madison Square Garden wrestling ring through the 60s. And Apter used to talk about having to stand up because of the height of the Garden ring, but lean over the narrow press table they had that ran down one whole side of the ring. And stick his head under the bottom rope to try to get a good picture. It's like he got scoliosis. So they didn't do or encourage until really the Vince Jr. era, guys fighting outside the ring in the garden because of the riot in 57 and all that other stuff. And so that's why, since they hadn't done a variety of stuff like that for so long, when they started doing it, it was, they had to give you some more room, but still it was tight around there. So to the photographers, yes, you always had your main guys, Bill Apter, obviously, George Napolitano for his section of the wrestling magazine universe, the photographer, the Frank Amados of the world, and all of the guys that shot at the Garden that were regulars. You had to allow access because the magazine publicity was still, very important in those days, but you couldn't go down the line to everybody that wanted to get in. That's how, remember, Paul admitted himself that he called up and bullshitted Vince Sr. and said he promised to give him a press pass when he never had to shoot pictures. That made him the fourth or fifth photographer at Madison Square Garden right there. But, so you had to draw a line, and usually because of the closed nature of the business in one, any particular market, if they had somebody shooting picture, me in Louisville, Mike Shields was doing Memphis, Scott Teal was in Nashville, this other, you had one or two photographers in a territory that did everything needed to be done. It's just because the Garden was such a big deal, everybody wanted to get in on that. But again, and modern day TV tapings also, before, when they were still trying to use old fashioned, ring setups with not a lot of room around ringside, now with guys with TV cameras and cable pullers and still photographers and ramps, and it was a goddamn pain in the ass. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm droning on.
Well, no, back to this letter here, again, about this situation and Vince McMahon Jr.'s response to it. I see the same thing happening here. If enough wrestlers complain to Vern Gagne and or Gary Juster, the press may start finding it more and more difficult to have their cooperation in future months. Already, the press has been banned from their most recent TV tapings in Wayne, New Jersey, and the only way to prevent this from expanding into a bad situation is to limit the number of photographers at ringside. If possible, from now on, please be extra careful about giving additional authorizations out for Pro Wrestling USA Northeastern matches.
Except for me, we would like not to have anybody else around.
One photographer per magazine is adequate, and it keeps the situation around the ring under control. I would hate to see Vern get mad one night and start throwing press members out arbitrarily. Thank you, Paul Heyman. P.S. The Meadowlands material and early material for next month's programs will be on their way in 2 days. Because he was already helping with those programs.
And that makes sense. 85, because that's when Vern and the Pro Wrestling USA guys were in charge, hence Gary Juster. And by February the next year, the first time we went up, Crockett they were still working with Vern, but Crockett was the primary person flowing forward for that.
For all the reasons Pro Wrestling USA as a concept didn't work.
Yeah.
I have Norm Keitzer's response, April 26, 1985. Paul Heyman, per your letter, I understand the situation about too many photographers.
Oh, Paul Heyman.
I understand the situation about too many photographers being not good. That's a bad sentence. I am well satisfied with your stuff and want to explain what happened. The only person I vouched for was Mr. Bob Doerer, Doerrer.
I've never heard of any of these people.
A correspondent I've had for over 5 years. He wrote me and asked if he and his friend could get press passes for the matches, and he said he would send me some photos. He and Norman Blake. They are the ones who have sent me some photos from Madison Square Garden. I relayed his request to Gary Juster. I can't find anyone in my correspondence file named Epstein. Although, when you've been publishing wrestling magazines for over 25 years, I'm not sure if at some point or another someone by that name did do work for me or one of the magazines I've taken over.
There was this one kid named Juan.
I think, though, that Bob Dorer must be the person at the Meadowlands. I didn't realize there was a problem with too many photographers, but realized how that could happen, and I won't okay anyone but you for the Meadowlands in the future. Basically, I just asked Gary, and he can say yes or no to anyone. But I did ask about Bob Dorer. I'm sorry if this contributed to the overcrowding, and from now on, I'll just tell anyone who asks that you are sending us the photos we need. The other side was at the time this came up, I didn't have any photos yet of everyone, specifically the Tonga kid that Gary wanted in the program. I have a photo of him from you now. I guess being in the situation where I am at the present, I look for help from anyone that I can, since without newsstand distribution, basically, I have a very small budget to work with and can't afford to buy material, so I accept help from anyone I can. But you are doing more than adequate. But you are doing more than adequate job, that is the way it's written, of supplying me with excellent material from your area.
Well, it's always nice when a guy that's almost bankrupt tells you you're more than adequate.
I'm just happy to have your help and that you are willing to give it in return for free copies of the magazines. I think I've explained some or all of this in the letters to you before, but if not, I will here. If this letter seems a bit disjointed, I'm writing it late Friday at the end of a long work week. I apologize for the errors. Anyway, by way of explanation, my setup is as follows.
You know what? Even though he's tired and he's had a long work week, brevity was never Norm Keitzer's ace in the hole.
As far as wrestling is concerned, my basic business is the wrestling news. I purchased the subscription and editorial files of Ring Wrestling and the Wrestling Review from Ring Corp. And then, Jim, it goes into detail here. It's a little, the carbon copy is a little messy about his deal with Ring Corp. Previously, they owe him a substantial amount from when they did something, his percentage, but I agreed to take my payment from their profits of future issues. That leaves me with subscriptions and area sales, also the program business. The programs I give to promotions at cost basically for two reasons. One is as part of the deal I have a subscription ad for the magazine in each one, and the other is I gain material for the magazines. If they
good Lord, but hold on now. So he wasn't making a profit on the actual, he was having programs
in 85.
In 85, he was having programs printed for a variety of the territories still. Was that he still at that point was doing stuff for Mid-South, for Watts?
85 he was doing stuff for Watts. He was finishing up with Vern, because Vern was going to start doing other things.
But he wasn't even making a profit on selling them their programs that they were turning around and selling for a profit. And see, that was, just so you know, when I started doing the Championship Wrestling magazine for the Memphis territory here, remember it was a 16-page thing. We just wanted something extra to sell at the matches. And goddamn, if we sold them for $2, I was selling them to Teeny for like $1, and I was getting them from him for like 65 or 70 cents, let's say, whatever. But then the reason why he offered me, wait a minute, it was all 16 pages of my stuff. He said, I'm not getting my ads for the Wrestling News magazine in this, and they're outselling the Wrestling News. So he gave me for the same price, like a full-size magazine, the same size magazine as you would buy on the newsstand. In fact, what was it? 68 pages, or no, it was 50 something, whatever. If he could put his ads in and I got more content for the same fucking price so he could get his ads in. That really was the way He was making all of his money was just with the fucking ads.
Let's go back to the end of this. There were quite a few correspondents who helped me by giving me material in return for copies of the magazine, although no one has given me as much as you have of late. I just wanted you to know that I really do appreciate all your help. I'll follow your suggestion about photographers for the USA and the Northeast. I should have thought of that earlier. I thank you again, and I'll close for now. But it's like nothing you can write to him that he won't write back a kind of pleasant...
Yes, he was a very pleasant fellow.
Here's an example of what Paul Heyman would be writing up for indie promotions to hype them up 40 years ago, 1985. Independent Championship Wrestling, the ICW, is headed by Bob Raskin of Raskin Sports Productions and holds cards in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. This promotion is shaping up to be the biggest and best independent promotion on the East Coast. And promoter Raskin has announced that he will soon be holding a tournament to decide heavyweight and tag team champions. Certainly among the favorites to win the tournament is Private Rocky Jones, the muscular youngster who is the latest protege of Sergeant Slaughter's. Never heard of Private Rocky Jones.
I've never heard. Apparently, he never even made corporal.
Always a good wrestler, Jones has shown remarkable improvement since his training under the Sarge. Another favorite, though not of the fans, is the former Rikers Island Corrections Officer, Smokin' Steve Sandor, who recently had a run-in with Jones in Port Chester, New York. The 6'2", 355.
We're at the mall?
The 6
Over at Dairy Queen? Where did they have this run? I've never heard of any of these names.
The 6'2", 315-pound rule breaker has vowed to become the first ICW heavyweight champion. Dominic DeNucci has also announced his intentions of winning the tournament.
Good Lord.
A seasoned veteran.
No kidding, seasoned. He's positively cured and pickled. By that, for 1985, what would DeNucci have been, 65?
Dominic is more popular now than ever. Many people think the best bet for the tag team title is the team known as the Executioners. These two well-built grapplers have done very well of late and have announced they will indeed enter the tournament. They may, however, be upset by the exciting new tag team of Larry Winters and the Leopard Mask. Winters is one of the best scientific wrestlers in the independents today, and Leopard Mask, with his backflips, flying head scissors, double flips, and drop kicks from the top rope, that has to be Ted Petty, may very well be the finest high flyer on the independent circuit.
Yeah, that's got to be Ted Petty from Guatemala, Tiger Mask, before he became the Cheetah Kid, wherever the cheetahs are from.
I can't be Tiger Mask. What should I be? He was the Cheetah Kid. Before that, he was Leopard Mask? I didn't know that. These two make a dynamite team. Other wrestlers who have appeared on recent ICW shows include the Terminator, Davey O'Hannon, Damian Kane, Crystal Monroe, Nature Girl, and Pete Sanchez. In a late-breaking development, promoter Raskin has announced that he has reached an agreement with Pro Wrestling USA as America's heavyweight champion. Larry Zbyszko will be defending his belt on several upcoming shows. They will be on May 10th, 85 in Hightstown, New Jersey. For the America's Heavyweight Championship, Larry Zbyszko versus Private Rocky Jones. Special attraction, Smokin' Steve Sandor versus an opponent to be named. Tag team attraction, the Executioners versus Larry Winters and Leopard Mask. Plus a ladies' attraction. And a special midgets match. Plus an appearance by The Basher.
The Basher?
There's a Paul Heyman indie press write-up from there.
40 year. What a difference 40 years makes.
What is this? Oh, wow. Look at this. And this is signed too. This is to Norman Kietzer, May 1st, 84, from Jim Crockett Promotions. It's signed by James A. Crockett Jr., President. Carbon copy, Paul Heyman, P.O. Box, same one you got. This is on the letterhead with the Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling logo, the Charlotte Orioles, and Worldwide Wrestling, or as it says here, Wide World Wrestling. Dear Mr. Kietzer, regarding press privileges for Paul Heyman, thank you for your correspondence of April 24th, 1984, wherein you requested press privileges from Mr. Paul Heyman at the upcoming event to be held at the Meadowlands in New Jersey. Mr. Heyman should direct his request to Michael Rowe at the Meadowlands. Sincerely, Jim Crockett Promotions Incorporated.
Which is another way of saying,
leave me alone.
I don't give a shit. Leave me alone. I don't know who any of these people are, and I don't care.
I'm fighting Vince. Why the hell are you calling me about this?
Well, I don't care if they fucking have the police photographer there to draw chalk outlines on the floor.
Oh, here it is too. This is April 24th, 1984. Dear Mr. Crockett, I am writing this letter to request press privileges for Mr. Paul Heyman at the upcoming card that you are promoting at the Meadowlands in New Jersey. Mr. Heyman regularly contributes material to our wrestling publications, and any courtesy you would extend would be appreciated. I ask that you grant his press privileges for this wrestling card. Sincerely, Norm Kietzer. Paul Heyman carbon copied on this. This a little bit after that. Studio 54, one night only, in person. Ric Flair. You are invited to join NWA World's Heavyweight Champion Nature Boy Ric Flair as he accepts the first annual Wrestling Press International Man of the Year Award.
I have that around here. He sent me one at the time. I have that around here somewhere.
Friday night, August 23rd at New York City's famous Studio 54. Doors open at 9 p.m. This flyer entitles you and a guest to complimentary admission until 10 p.m. Come early, stay late. Bring this flyer with you. And you are entitled to a special discount after 10 p.m. $12 per person for you and a guest anytime after 10 p.m. For more information, call the Studio 54 hotline 24 hours a day.
And now some people have to go, what the fuck? And Paul was doing publicity for Studio 54 or had them convinced he was doing some kind of publicity so he could get pictures of himself with celebrities. And meanwhile, he was getting getting into wrestling by getting the wrestling people into Studio 54. So when they told Flair, oh, come to Studio 54 and get an award, he's like, oh, and it was, woo. These things actually happen.
I think he got Dusty and Magnum there too, either around a Philly show or a Meadowlands show. It may have been Philly actually, but he got them there too. And then that's where Bam Bam Bigelow debuted.
Yeah, I was about to say, the Studio 54, was that not the site of Bam Bam Bigelow's debut match in pro wrestling?
See, there's a ton of early Bam Bam Bigelow stuff in here. There's a ton of early everyone that Paul Heyman encountered.
Does he have pictures of the manager pictures of him on the stool with the Motor City Mad Men?
Yep, I got an original mint condition one of those. What is this from? December 2nd, 85. Front page of the Torrington Register Citizen. Dr. D. Schultz and fan charged after scuffle at wrestling match. And here's a picture of David Schultz walking out of the police station.
Was the police station on fire at the time, or does everything look peaceful?
Professional wrestler Dr. D. David Schultz, already the target of a lawsuit after striking television reporter John Stossel, got into another scuffle after a wrestling match Sunday night. According to 22-year-old Leonard Rinaldi, a fan in the audience at the Torrington High School gymnasium, Schultz, 35, attacked him and struck him on the head with his boot as the wrestler was leaving the ring for the dressing room. All I did was touch him.
Wait a minute, with his boot in his hand?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess, did he kick him? I don't know what exactly that's supposed to mean, but let me go back to this. I did, this is Rinaldi, all I did was touch him. And the next thing I know, there was a size 13 boot coming down on my head, Rinaldi said at the Torrington police station after the incident. Both Schultz and Rinaldi were charged with breach of peace. Police would not comment further on the incident Sunday night. Schultz, who lives in Woodbridge, was released on written promise to appear in court December 16th. Rinaldi, and has his home address here, who lives in Torrington, received a court date of December 6th. Rinaldi, who said he had touched other wrestlers at the event and shook hands with a female wrestler, said Schultz shouted, "Don't touch me, you punk," during the scuffle. A slight man weighing about 150 pounds, Rinaldi, clearly shaken by the incident, says he covered his face when he hit the floor and later complained of a throbbing head and pain in his upper body. William Montalbo, a fan sitting near Rinaldi.
No. What is his name?
Montembeau. It's
Mighty Blow.
It's a mighty name. A fan sitting near Rinaldi said wrestler Jim Brady pulled Schultz away from Rinaldi. Police later arrived at the scene and brought the burly wrestler to police headquarters. Brady and other wrestlers followed him. At police headquarters, Brady and other wrestlers expressed considerable anger at Schultz's situation. After Schultz and Rinaldi left headquarters, Brady invited the fans to his next scheduled bout in Washington, D.C., which happens to be with Schultz. Montembeau, whatever this guy's name is,
Mighty Blue,
who earlier vowed never to watch pro wrestling again, said he and Rinaldi would attend the fight in Washington. We have to, the 19-year-old said. It's a grudge. Schultz is being sued by ABC TV consumer reporter John Stossel after an incident in a taped interview for 2020, and it goes into that. American Legion Post 28 sponsored the wrestling event at the high school, attended by more than 500 people. Schultz made his wrestling debut in Winstead in October at a Trans World Wrestling match sponsored by the police union. Well, there it is. Heyman sending in all sorts of reports that,
Oh, he's a stooge, too, we found out. Wants to make sure that Schultz's misfortune makes the paper.
Well, it made the front page. It made the front page of the papers. Heyman just sent in a copy of the paper. How many we always hear about wrestlers did this and that. How many are there that we just have never heard of, like, from this era? Like, you think you hear everything, and then here's David Schultz beating up some fan.
No, you haven't even heard all of mine, and I've been telling them for 30 years. No, that was... You can go back through any city's newspapers that had regular wrestling, and you will find I've got some from the 70s at the Louisville Gardens where the fan was arrested, disorderly conduct or assault, or fan suing. You can do the same thing for every town in America that had a newspaper. You'll find them every so often. Or the fan had a heart attack fucking at the matches. You'll find those in every city through the 20th century that had fucking wrestling periodically. And nobody knows about them today. And many of them were not reported. A lot of shit scuffles that I either saw or was in just in the 80s was never reported in the paper or, a public topic of discussion. Bam, bam. I hit that fucking guy that hit me or kicked me. I hit him, whatever. That happened constantly.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's end this edition of From the Files with, real quickly, 2 cards for programs that were done by Wrestling Press International, publisher and editor Paul Heyman. This one, A Night of Professional Wrestling, Tottenville High School, Staten Island, New York, November 19th, 1985. Johnny Rods versus Kurt Von Hess. Jesus Christ.
Good Lord. What?
Can that be the original Kurt Von Hess? Hold on.
Certainly not.
It does not say. Steve Sandor versus Larry Winters. Special girls attraction. Lady Adonis versus Jody Shields. The Road Warriors versus Larry Sharp and Mike Kalua. And the main event, Sergeant Slaughter versus Boris Zukov. And then a couple days later, November 23rd.
So, and again, obviously for people going, what? He had arranged through probably Gary Juster to get 4 guys from Vern, Road Warriors and Zukov and
Slaughter.
Zabisco. Slaughter.
Yeah, and it's a night of professional wrestling featuring Sergeant Slaughter and the Road Warriors on the cover. A couple days later, the 23rd, Carteret, New Jersey, the high school. Publisher and editor Paul Heyman's NAWF consultant, Chuck Richards. That's Chris Candido's grandfather.
Yes.
Yeah, does it say anything else about him in here? Doesn't say, but... Oh, he's the promoter, actually. It says consultant. He is the promoter, as it turns out. Midgets. It just says the word midgets over and over about 10 times. Tiger Jackson versus Poncho Boy. Larry Winters.
Tiger Jackson, by the way, later on would be one of the doinks, wouldn't he?
Well, he was Dink.
He was Dinks. Well, one of the doinks, one of the dinks.
He was Dink.
A dink, a dink, a dink, a doo.
After that big feud with Little Louie that he had for a while. Larry Winters versus Jim Londos.
What?
Obviously, there was a third Jim Londos. There were a few Jim Londoses, I guess. Tom Rice versus Jeff Gripley. Bonus match. Bam Bam Bigelow, Bigolow, versus Sailor Eddie Shore. A special challenge match, Pretty Boy Larry Sharp versus the Cheetah Kid, spelled Chita. The Cheetah Kid.
Because Cheetah Rivera was booked.
And the main event, a super special tag team attraction, the Masked Russians versus the Tonga Kid and Samoan number 3, in parentheses, Samu. So there we go, a look at part 1 of a multi-part that we may do other ones in between of From the Files, Paul Heyman. Any closing thoughts here?
Paul Heyman's got so many parts we could go into now.
Oh, this is a nice business card, an original Monster Factory business card. They got color on it and everything. Here's Paul Heyman with a healthy head of hair. Precious argues with reporter Paul Heyman as the interview comes to an abrupt end. And then it's Heyman and Jimmy Garvin and Precious, and he
was shooting angles with himself when he was a fucking reporter.
That's right. All right, well, that was From the Files, Paul Heyman getting us off on a good note. Let me put this giant file down.
I'm glad I was able to kick that off with the postcard from my dear friend.
It's funny.
Who almost got me banned from Sabatino's for whatever. What were you about to say?
I was about to say, it's funny how that worked out. It worked out. The only other time that happened recently was when we both ended up doing something about Pat Malone independent of each other and came in From the Files too, actually, now that I think about it.
Yes.